Many of the languages the students spoke were considered low-resource languages, which meant that they weren't on these translation platforms, and the number of low-resource language speakers grading from 3 billion to 4 billion to even more. We need to make a difference soon.
Subhadra Vadlamannati, a 2023 Fatima Fellow and high school senior, is devoted to promoting low-resource languages. Despite her young age, Subha and her Fatima Fellowship mentor, Gozde, have already published a paper in the Association for Computational Linguistics.
Coming as a high schooler, right, with no formal education in computer science, with no formal education in natural language processing, I don't have that university level resource. But with the Fatima Fellowship, they give you a one-on-one mentor that is working with you directly and invested in your success. And this is something that's free and accessible to everyone. So with the 9-month program, I've had a wonderful experience, and it's really changed the way that I view natural language processing. So low-resource languages are basically the ones that don't have traditional support on machine learning or translation platforms. So actually, in the world, there's only about 5 or 6 high-resource languages. They're like English, French, Spanish, Chinese, Italian, sometimes, like sort of the really big languages. And actually, all of the other thousands of languages the rest of them are all considered low-resource languages. So for example, my native language, Telugu, it has 300 million speakers, but it's still considered a low-resource language because you can't really translate onto it online. The translations are inaccurate, and you can't find sort of resources or content on it online very readily because we don't have many like data sets, corpora, or other things in these 6,000 languages. Like 3 years ago, I was volunteering with several local refugee immigrant organizations. And I have always been very passionate about math, science, computer science, so I wanted to share my love for these subjects with the kids. But the problem is, in a class of about maybe 200 students, only about 10 kids or 15 kids could understand what I was saying because of the language barrier. So I realized that many of these kids, who were so passionate about math and science, could not access education. So when I tried to find their languages on Google Translate, Microsoft Translate, these typical services people use, I couldn't find them. They were like dialects of Arabic, Somali, Ukrainian, hundreds of Indian languages as well. And I realized online on these popular translation platforms, there's only about 200 or 300 languages, but around the world, there's around 7,000 languages. And I realized that there was this massive divide between like the high resource and low resource languages in the world. 2 years ago, I was searching online for research opportunities in this field because I wanted to see how can I develop systems that can better help immigrants, refugees, and other people looking to learn English and to advance their language learning. And that's when I came across the Fatima Fellowship. And it really also tied into why I wanted to join the Fatima Fellowship to like research linguistics and natural language processing further. 3 billion people actually speak a low resource language. Even outside of machine translation, it's a whole language is sort of an access to culture, to heritage, and to all of these important things. And so it's just such a giant problem. And I think not many people are speaking about it because we all can read English, we all can understand this, and we all can find resources. So everyone thinks it's not a problem. And really these people who don't speak those languages, they can't speak up about, their problem that they're facing, the resources that they're lacking. And their voices are essentially silenced. So I think it's kind of a very quiet crisis of our time. The Fatima Fellowship being able to give opportunities to people who live in these countries who speak low resource languages is an incredible opportunity. Specifically, I think the NLP community is also starting to realize this and bring more diversity into the languages. Recently, I've been seeing a lot more literature regarding multilingualism. I've talked with professors and researchers like Dr. Reuter, who's also also working on these areas. So I think when we're able to give people who actually speak these languages the opportunity to develop models in their language that can predict translations into their language, that's when these models can be as accurate as they are currently. Like, for example, I speak Telugu. If I was able to develop models in Telugu, I can cross-check them myself. I probably have a greater access to a community of Telugu speakers who could verify these models. So when we're actually able to give resources to the communities, and that they can actually go into their communities and help the people, because they are the ones that have resources and contacts to those people who speak those languages. So I think it's wonderful what Fatima Fellowship is doing, giving those resources to all of these different communities so they can make change within their own spaces. Like, for example, I speak Telugu. If I was able to develop models in Telugu, I can cross-check them myself. I probably have a greater access to a community of Telugu speakers who could verify these models. So when we're actually able to give resources to the communities, and that they can actually go into their communities and help the people, because they are the ones that have resources and contacts to those people who speak those languages. So I think it's wonderful what Fatima Fellowship is doing, giving those resources to all of these different communities so they can make change within their own spaces. And a lot of the times there's a lot of the advancements that happen in the Western world, whether that be healthcare, education, technology advancements, a lot of these things are not available for Telugu speakers or low resource language speakers around the globe. They're not translated into these languages. They're not made aware of these advancements. So I think when we can develop language models and develop good translation models into languages like Telugu, we're actually able to spread equity and have a level playing field for everyone. Because a lot of the times the textbooks that people use in these countries are often outdated. The educational resources, anything like legal documents, etc. They're outdated, and they're not up to the par with what the Western world has access to. So when we're able to develop language models that can do this in these low resource languages, we're able to have everyone at a level playing field. The Fatima Fellowship being able to give opportunities to people who live in these countries who speak low resource languages is an incredible opportunity.